Welcome to Mainland, your local regional television station. I'm Graham O'Brien, and some of the stories coming up in our Nelson Tasman Regional News Roundup. Armed police respond to anonymous phone call. Caver trains armed forces. Policing causes concerns for small community, and more. An elderly Motueka resident who spoke about her ordeal when an intruder robbed her and ate her food while she was in her home was just one of 38 people who spoke about their issues over the lack of police in Motueka at last week's public meeting. Chrissy Small spoke to Community Chairman Paul Hawkes about the meeting and where to from here for the community.
Paul, now it was a pretty well tuned out meeting in Motueka last week. Were you expecting that many people from the community to come out and talk about their problems and their issues with policing?
I was certainly hoping that would be the case. I was expecting about 60 people to turn out. To have double that was quite humbling. To think that there are a lot of people out there that shared the similar concerns to me. And not only my concerns, basically I have been voicing concerns of people that have been contacting me, albeit I suppose a spokesman. A lot of people find it very difficult to communicate with people in authority. I just tend to like upsetting people, I think.
Okay, now look, what were some of the concerns raised at the meeting?
One of the big concerns that was here apparent was people felt unsafe. They didn't feel as though they were getting the quality they deserved, both in responses. The communication system has got issues. They've been going through a redevelopment of the communication network, and a lot of communications just isn't getting through to the right people in good time. They're very, very despondent about the response times to those call-ins, the complaints. So it makes it very, very awkward for them to feel as though they're being well looked after, so to speak. The other huge one was that there seems to be this barrier between the police and people. They don't feel as though they're connected. And Matt Arnold-Kelly, who was as our area commander, was very, very open in the fact that he needs to open those lines of communications up more and more, and certainly intends to make it a regular occurrence, having public meetings or private meetings once he has an open door policy.
Now, look, it seems to me, I spend a bit of time in Motueka myself, and the presence of the police just isn't there anymore.
Well, if you're a part-time observer, you could imagine what a lot of the local people are saying. I'm always getting shopkeepers saying, we don't see the presence of the police in town. The only time we see them is when they're racing through in their cars to get to an incident, or responding to call-outs, or occasionally they see them uptown getting their smoko. That's where that connection between public and police is paramount. It's the strongest connection they can get, is visible presence. If people see police, they think they're being well vindicated, they think they're being well looked after, and at the moment there's just not that physical presence there.
Do you think more rat bags are moving into the Motueka region?
No, I don't think so. I think with media and social media these days, our so-called rat bags have changed their tactics, and hence police are having to change their response tactics as well. Motueka is a very high turnover of population, being seasonal, so I dare say we do get some bad elements that come in. To say that we've got a lot of rat bags, I think, is a bit harsh. I just think they could be better controlled.
Right. Okay. Look, there was an incident where a woman was spotted walking completely starkers down the main street not so long ago, and people were amazed that there wasn't any police response for some time, I believe. And she was able to go into the supermarket, put herself through the self-help checkout. Was that brought up at the meeting?
You said put it through the self-checkout. No, it wasn't brought up. It's something that I think is being looked into at the moment. I'd rather not comment on that side of it. I thought it was quite comical. Obviously a disturbed person, shall we say. And I do know the police did attend. and certainly acted on information that was supplied to them. I don't know how quick it was. Obviously not very quick. Social media, it hit social media almost instantly. It was amazing.
That's right. Now, look, that was just one incident. Of course, they've just had a big crop find in Motueka as well. So we've got a few green-thumbed people out there. And obviously, there's the undercurrent of other things that are going on. Home invasion. There was one lady that spoke about that.
She was just one of several that spoke of home invasion and calling the police, and was put on a low priority because the person wasn't armed. They were not menacing. They were sitting there having a meal at her table while she was watching, waiting for them to go. But to me, my little patch of land with my house is sacred, and if I have somebody that's in my house that's not meant to be, I want them out. And basically, not, I won't say being fobbed off, but being put on a low priority, especially an elderly lady, I won't say old, an elderly lady, mature lady, to feel totally insecure with a stranger in her house. How would you feel? And not to have somebody basically there within minutes to try and help out, because it could have turned ugly.
What was the response time?
I'm unsure completely, but I'm pretty certain it was the following day.
So people are genuinely feeling unsafe. They've got good cause to.
Yeah, well, that was the underlying tone that came out of the conversations that were had, the discussions that were had with police. And I have to confess, Matt Arnold Kelly, our area commander, was very, very distraught to think that people had that opinion in Motueka. It still does have I only just quickly glanced at the statistics in the Herald about policing throughout New Zealand, and found out that Motueka ranked the second in the country for the highest resolution rates. The resolution rates are very, very low in statistical figures, but we're the second highest, so I'd hate to think what some of the other communities are feeling.
Takaka resident and caver Kieran Mackay has been above ground this week to help prepare some of our elite members of our armed forces who were in the Moutere this week for training. Chrissy Small caught up with him at the Whenuiti Outdoor Centre.
Kieran Mackay, look, here we are at Whenuiti. What are you doing at Whenuiti at the moment?
Oh, getting incredibly hot. What we're actually doing is helping running a leadership program for the Defence Force. So my mate Chris Whitehouse and I, we actually run the caving segment of this incredible leadership course they do for the colonels.
Okay, so you've got a whole lot of colonels here.
Yeah.
And they're not corny ones.
No, these guys are amazing. They're a really incredible bunch of people to work with, actually.
Yeah, I saw a few women in there too.
Yes, it's good to see it's multi-sex. That's really, really cool. Yeah. And they're from the Army, Navy and the Air Force.
Right. Are these guys involved in cave rescue as well?
No, these are just out there doing their thing in the Defence Force. I'm not exactly sure what jobs they do, but I know some of them do some pretty incredible jobs.
Right, well, they certainly plucky going down that tower. I don't think I'd have the courage or the ability.
They seem pretty brave at the moment, but the next couple of days they're going to be doing some very, very challenging stuff underground.
Oh, so you are going to take them down under?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. This is all just training. We're just training them with some really specific skills, and then we take them into 2 caves up on Takaka Hill, and that's going to really challenge them.
Right. Do you check them out for claustrophobia first, like put them in a closet for a while and see how they handle it, or what do they have to do to prove they're not claustrophobic?
Well, all those challenges, that's all part of the course, and we put them out there. They get put out there, and they have to deal with those challenges, and that kind of helps develop the leadership stuff back at home.
Wow, that sounds like they'll go back with a lot of skills then.
I think they'll go back having learned a lot about themselves, and that's the whole concept of the course. Yeah.
Okay, so how long's this course been running, Kieran?
Oh, when did we start on this? Probably 2-3 years ago. I think we started. They run about 2 or 3 a year, and it's apparent it works. We're not part of the actual teaching the leadership. We just run the caving program. But what we hear is that the whole concept actually works really, really well.
Great. Okay, so who came up with the concept?
I couldn't tell you exactly who, but it was through the Army Leadership Centre, which is based down in Burnham, and those guys came up with a concept amongst themselves. Some guys here did some research around the world to find out exactly what works and what doesn't, and they've taken on board some pretty high-powered kind of leadership models, and they use those leadership tools, and they use those.
Great. Okay, so you're certainly going to put them through their paces. How long is this whole course for then?
We're with them for 4 days, but the whole course is much, much longer than that. I think it's full on for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then there's a lot more kind of stuff after that they kind of deal with. You know, they kind of pull into pieces, and they give them tools on how to put themselves back together, and they kind of make sure that's happening through the next year or so.
Okay, so Kieran, after this course, what are your plans?
Oh, I've still got a lot of work this month. It's pretty busy. But in between times, we've still got lots of local projects to go and work on. So it's either work, sitting in the sun with my wife and hanging out with my wife, or we're going off caving around in the Tākega Hill area.
Right, and that's kind of the opposite of sitting in the sun, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You're a man of extremes.
Well, it's so hot at the moment. It's really nice to get underground. Yeah, this heat's killing me.
I think it's killing all of us, actually. We're all wilting, aren't we?
Oh, I'm glad to know it's actually affecting everybody, because I'm finding this really, really hard.
Yeah. You'll be looking forward to getting back to your caving tomorrow. You're taking these folks into the caves, so
yeah, we're going to training cave tomorrow, and then send them off on a big caving trip, kind of on their own, on the next day.
Great.
And it's a good challenging cave for them.
Okay. Now, we've just been having an exercise of cave rescue in the region. That a little mishap took place, but it all worked out well, and the rescuers actually got to do a real rescue. Were you involved in that?
I knew that question would come up. The official word is, no, I was asleep. Yeah, well, we're all involved, and the person that had the accident got out on his own, so yeah, it was all good, and he's all right.
Yeah. Well, that is good, and really, it must be. I mean, to have that many people, what was it, 70 people?
70 people, yeah.
Yeah, is phenomenal, and it just shows you that they take caving very seriously around here.
Yeah, and it's also good to know that you work with those people on exercises, you get to know them really, really well. You meet them socially. The caving community is really, really small, and if you have an accident, there's amazing people to come out and help you. And sure, that gives us a bit of confidence to push harder. But you just know that accidents these days generally are further and further from the entrance than they've ever been. Yeah. So the rescue's just going to involve more people, a lot more time. But we do our best not to have accidents. Yeah. But occasionally things happen. Yeah.
Nelson Armed Defenders Squad were called out to Motueka on Wednesday after an anonymous phone call saying that a firearm had been presented at an address in Rewalker around midday. Police finally cleared the house around 4 o'clock where the incident was reported to have taken place. However, no firearms were found. Senior Sergeant Blair Hall said police have not found any information to substantiate the initial call, and inquiries into the matter are continuing. Nelson's Trafalgar Centre and Rutherford Park improvements seem to be growing in cost, with the budget cap blown out and budget overruns seeming to be the norm rather than the exception to the rule. Kerry Neal joins us with the latest instalment of the Rutherford Park upgrade as seen through the eyes of a concerned ratepayer. Kerry, we're usually talking about the Trafalgar building as such, what's under it, what's going on in it, but today we'll talk a little bit about the expenditure, or actually over-expenditure.
Good idea.
So can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Okay, well, for a start, they've managed to squeeze another 13 million out of the ratepayer, you people, to do what they're doing down there now, plus the cost of the consultants and legal, and there's no record of staff time, incidentally, in all this. So that's another major item that we'll never know. The whole total bill for that entire zone, from the Maitai Walkway to the Trafalgar Centre, known as Rutherford Park, including the new road, adds up to $23.4 million.
Yes.
That's approaching half the annual rate take, and about approaching a quarter of the annual income for Nelson City Council on one zone of nice to have primarily. There are certain things that had to be done on the Trafalgar Centre, like for instance attention to the southern end because the staff signed it off unlawfully 7 or 8 years ago. Things have to be done, and the new code that came about because of Christchurch earthquake has opened a Pandora's box. So you've got things like what I've just mentioned, and the steepness of the stairs internally. I understand they're replacing them. They certainly were claiming that a while ago. Replacing them because they're too steep.
Sure.
under the current code. Now you can imagine how much expense is involved in that alone.
Just going back to the area itself,
Yeah.
I mean, what this figure seems rather large compared to what we were told and what was actually budgeted for that.
Okay, well, there's a few overruns, and funny how 700,000 seems to repeat itself. But the Maitai Walkway, the big concrete zone, overran by approximately 700,000. They then agreed to an adult playground. That sounds fascinating in itself. Another 700, unbudgeted.
Yep.
And the other day they resolved to spend 700,000 additional on the new road across Rutherford Park to service Trafalgar Centre. The bill on that is 3.2.
I mean, it's quite amazing, really, because I mean, like you say, these things are like, it would be great to have them, but do we really need them to get things up and running?
Well, while people are desperately waiting for attention to culverts and creeks and whatnot out of the Stoke zone, and all this money is being laid out for nice to have, I think the only thing I can say is make sure these councillors that are there now don't get re-elected. They don't deserve to be. They are just simply pawns in a big game of consultants, lawyers, senior staff of local government, all, I won't say conspiring, but working to continue with their own interests. And what's worse, our representatives are letting it happen.
Yeah, well, not
In
calling
fact,
it on.
worse than that, they defend it when you challenge them. So they've got to go.
And going back to Trafalgar, what about this I mean, we had the Victory Room. It was quite well used before
That's right.
Trafalgar was
That's right.
was
Yeah.
shut down.
Righto.
And now there is no such room.
Exactly. Yeah, there will be one big foyer, and they were told in no uncertain terms recently they'd forgotten to accommodate the manager in their new scheme of things. So they're now trying to accommodate that in the main stadium somewhere.
Yeah.
This is after councillors sitting there for months poring over what they would like to have for the new southern end.
Yeah.
And worse still, their code very clearly states if you deny the community a facility, you must approach the community before you embark on any other proposition. They didn't do that. They put the digger through it.
Yeah. And we've also just learned recently that Mayor Reist in an interview, I think it was on the national radio, and she came up that we were thinking of putting curtains up.
Apparently, inside. Well, this is. I believe that now I understand it to mean curtaining inside the main stadium.
Yeah.
To reduce the size of the environment. That's what I mean. What the heck? There's nothing wrong with it like it is.
This seems to be another add-on, like
Absolutely.
You know, we should be doing this.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And I mean,
it's another 400.
Yeah, plus something.
Oh,
like
yes, plus.
Plus something. Yeah. So all this is adding up and adding up and adding up to, so far you're saying 23.4 million. And is that? Do you think is that actually the maximum that we're gonna pay? Do you think, in your opinion, or is there more little? What else are we going to put in there, or what else are we going to do?
It's rare that they come out less.
Yes. Yeah. Well, not much stuff comes under budget,
and particularly in this day and age where new requirements come along all the time in the middle of a project.
Yep.
And there's nothing even a local authority can do about that.
Yep. And looking at a wider scale, all this talk about climate change, if you looked at the last climate change march, which I went to and covered, they've got the water level up to the fire station.
Oh, okay.
So if you actually are a climate change believer, which there's a lot of people out there that do, there seems to be little point in developing anything down in that end of town.
This is the irony of it, how they can go and splash out all this money with that factor hanging over their head. I don't subscribe to it, but nevertheless there may be something in it. I haven't seen the tide move 1 millimetre, but it might.
Yep.
And on the basis of that it might, scientifically they say it probably will. Here we are spending all this money on that zone that's relatively vulnerable. Having said that, City Hall itself is about a metre below the bank of the Maitai River. Next time you go over the Maitai Bridge, Trafalgar Street Bridge,
Right.
have a look. You actually drive down to the lights. So if it ever broke through the bank, there'll be a few life jackets needed in City Hall.
Hey, Kerry, thanks very much for that. Thanks for keeping us up to date.
No, it's a pleasure.
First, it was the
It's a
building
pleasure.
that I quite personally believe would have been demolished if you didn't point out that the piles were in fact what they said they were on the plans, and keeping us up to date with this expenditure, because everyone is very busy. We don't have time to
Exactly.
get in there and sit in these meetings.
Yeah.
We do have the meetings up on video now if people want to go and look.
Yes, I noticed that.
Which is
Yeah.
good for the
Yes,
democracy and the
yes,
transparency of it
yes,
all.
yes.
But thanks very much for all your hard work. And
Oh, thank you, Graham. No, it's been a major exercise, and we've been under a fair bit of stress at times because we were all friends, and now we're enemies, and that's very sad. But it's not of my making.
Nelson Provincial Museum's research facility in Stoke is not only set on one of our city's oldest historical gardens, but is home to some of the oldest documents in our region. The facility had 2 open days last week. I spoke to the collection managers Paula Haynes-Bellamy and Daryl Gallagher. Paula, recently you had the back of house tours down here at the museum. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went for you?
Sure, yes, we held 2 back house tours last week and they were great. So we got the maximum number of people booked for the tours. They were great. I mean, I think a lot of people think of this building as still as the museum and visited it when it was the museum, and it's now the research facility and collection store. So people were really intrigued and excited about being able to see behind the scenes and to see what staff do. We're quite, we're not secret in our work, but yeah, it is sort of, we're not out there and obvious to people, so it was great. So staff got a chance to show off what they do, and we got a chance to also highlight what the volunteers do with us as well. So we work on the collection here, we work on developing resources, we provide access to the public. We also develop our exhibitions here and work on the objects that are going to go into exhibitions.
And what was your maximum number, and are you planning to hold another one?
Yeah, maximum number is 8, unfortunately, because of the nature of the building. It's access is quite limited, and so we restricted to 8. Yes, we are going to try and hold them regularly now, every 3 months or so, and we'll advertise that in our e-news, so people need to look out for that. And if they're not subscribed, get on board and join our e-news.
And you talked about your volunteers. How many volunteers do you have here, and could you do it without them?
Sure, no, definitely couldn't do the work without them. We have up to 12 volunteers. We're always looking for volunteers, but we've got to be careful because of limited space about how many we have within a week. They're great. They develop a lot of resources in the library. They do a lot of work with our staff, working with collection objects.
So Paula, why do you actually have the library here in the museum?
Well, you've got to go back in history, I guess. The library was part of the museum, and then it split off to become the public library, and then we retained our library and archive collection, and it's been added to since then. The library's here for the public to use and for staff to use as reference material. The library's, I guess the first 2 collections that started the library were Dr. Betts' collection and Mr. Marston's collection, Mr. Marston from Isle House, which is next to us. Those collections are historical collections and they've always been with the museum.
Daryl, what part do you play in the museum here?
Well, I'm the manager of the photographic collection. That basically means that it's my role to both preserve the photographic items in this collection, and that's in terms of both the access to them, so the intellectual property about those items, but also physically. I actually physically store and protect those items.
Okay, Daryl, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you're seeing here is a project that's actually been going since about 2010. So the idea is to actually get all these thousands of glass plate negatives that we've actually had in wooden shelving and actually get them into proper acid-free brand new metal cabinets. So what we've got the guys doing here is they're actually working their way through this collection. They're entering a bit of information about it as they go along. Then they're actually photographing it and digitising it in the process.
Is it a long process there?
Well, it's been a substantial process. So As I mentioned, it's been going since about 2010. They've actually digitised about 130 odd thousand of these glass plate negatives out of an estimated 160 odd thousand. So they're over 80% of the way.
And it doesn't look like something you can just set up in your backyard. It must cost a pretty penny. How have you managed to fund that?
Absolutely. So the funding behind this has come from a lotteries board grant, and we've also been fortunate to have some private donors backing us as well.
And just like photographing one piece, does it quite take a long time just to do one piece of work?
What we've actually done is we've actually researched how to get a really good flow on. So a bit of background work went into this project. Originally we anticipated doing it with scanners, but we actually worked out that the best way to do it is actually to use a full frame digital SLR camera and do them one by one like that. So there's a reasonable rate that we're actually kicking through in these, and if you can do the math, 130 odd thousand, and I think the continuous work that's gone into it accumulates to about 4.25 years worth.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
Hi there, Julian Toon, Waimea Telecommunications. We install and maintain domestic and commercial satellite TV, UHF Freeview and mainland TV installations in the Nelson Tasman regions. We specialise in Panasonic telephone systems and provide communications, Wi-Fi, IT and wiring for internet, fibre, computers and DSL systems. At Waimea Telecommunications, we also provide specialist electronic systems for features such as a security camera you can watch on your TV, visitor alert systems and much more. Improve your security and communication and entertainment today. Call us on Waimea Telecommunications on 021 472297, ytel.co.nz.
We're the team at JCar, right here in Nelson, 120 Hardy Street. Our shop is full of electronic items,
including security alarm systems, electronic components,
solar and power,
electronics toys,
sound systems, cables, and much, much more. JCar.
120 Hardy Street, Nelson.
Meet with John Pepper, the man who walked off his Parkinson's symptoms at NMIT's Ko-Fi Lounge, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m, Tuesday, March the 15th. On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thank you for joining us.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
World War I was a defining period in our history, impacting greatly on the lives of people from the Nelson province. Memories of the First World War is an exhibition which will be displayed in a number of regional venues and is currently on at the Nelson Provincial Museum.
Why would you want to pay as much as $1,000 for a single bed mattress when you can buy a high quality locally made mattress like this for as little as $220? And a queen size mattress could cost you in excess of $3,000, but at Nelson Beds you could have a mattress like this as low as $425. So why would you go out and spend a fortune on your child's bedroom when you can come to Nelson Beds and buy a complete single mattress and base set, a 7-drawer Scotch chest, a headboard and a 3-drawer bedside cabinet for as little as $979? So call and discuss our custom manufacturing options and local after sales service at Nelson Beds, Nelson's only bedding manufacturer.